Trinadapi Sunichena Torariva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Harenama 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 Vikivalam Kalo Nastyeva 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 Gatiranyata. So this music that I had, that's taken from Prabhupada, 1966. So that's a recording of Prabhupada in Tompkins Square Park. He's playing the drum. He's not playing mridanga. He's playing a type of bongo drum. So now when I do kirtan, we're doing kirtan with Prabhupada. I'm very happy about this. We're going to study tonight the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Let us begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So there is a book, Gita Mahatmyam by Lord Shiva, and this is how he wants us to get in the mood for this 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Lord Vishnu, so this is Lord Shiva speaking to Parvati, and he says, Lord Vishnu said, now I will describe to you the unlimited glories of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Listen very carefully. In the state of Madra, there is a town of the name Purukutsapur. There lived a Brahmin by the name of Pingal. During his childhood, he was trained in various Brahminical activities and was taught the Vedas. But he had no interest in his studies. When he reached his youth, he gave up his Brahminical pursuits and started to learn how to play instruments as well as singing and dancing. Slowly, he became so famous in this field that the king himself invited him to live in the palace. While he was living there, he slowly degraded more and more into sinful life. He started to enjoy with other men's wives and engage in all kinds of sinful activities and intoxication. He became so proud of his position as he gained more and more intimacy with the king. He especially enjoyed criticizing others to the king in private. Pingal had a wife whose name was Aruna, who was born in a low-class family. She was very lusty and enjoyed relationships with many other men. But when Pingal found out about her activities, Aruna decided to kill Pingal. Late one night, she chopped off his head and buried his body in the garden. After his death, Pingal fell into the deepest regions of hell, and after having suffered there for a long time, took birth as a vulture. Aruna, after freely enjoying with many men, contracted venereal disease, and her youthful body very soon became ugly and unattractive. When she died, she went on to hell, and after having suffered for a long time, attained the body of a female parrot. One day that very parrot was searching here and there for food. In the meantime, the vulture, who in his previous life had been Pingal, saw the female parrot, and remembering his past life and understanding that this parrot had been his wife, he attacked her with his sharp beaks. The parrot fell down into the water contained in a human skull and drowned. Just then a hunter came and shot the vulture with an arrow. The vulture fell, and his head dropped into the water of that same skull, so he also drowned. Then the messengers of Yamaraj came and took them both to the abode of death. At that time, they became very afraid, remembering their past sinful lives. When they came in front of Yamaraj, he then told them, "You are now free of all sins, and you may go to Vaikuntha." When Pingal and Aruna heard this, they inquired from Yamaraj how two sinful persons such as they had attained the right to go to Vaikuntha. Yamaraj replied, "On the banks of the river Ganga lived a great devotee of Lord Vishnu by the name of Vat, who was free from lust and greed. Daily he recited the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and when Vat gave up his body, he went straight to Vaikuntha. Due to his reciting the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita daily, his body became completely pure, and because of your coming in contact with the skull of the body of that devotee, you have both attained Vaikuntha. Such is the glory of the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita." Lord Vishnu then said, "My dear Lakshmi, when they both heard the glories of Bhagavad Gita from Yamaraj, they became very happy and sat down in the flower airplane which had come to take them to Vaikuntha. Lord Shiva then said to Parvati, "Anyone who hears the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, even the most sinful, will attain Vaikuntha." So are you ready to hear the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Do you need any more impetus? Pretty far out, huh? This is Lord Shiva. This is his, so don't argue with Lord Shiva. All right. Chapter 5, Prabhupada has 29 verses. Prabhupada entitles it Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So another chapter was called Karma Yoga. Which one was that? 3, yes. But this is beyond that. Karma Yoga meaning action in Krishna consciousness. So the verses 1 through 6 I entitled Understanding Sannyas, Karma Yoga, and Sankhya. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?" So who wants to answer Arjuna's question? Which is better, renouncing work or working with devotion? Very good. You have passed your examinations. Very good. Excellent. Now I feel good. My students have learned. The personality of Godhead replied, "The renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work." So working in devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, praying, working in the temple, arranging programs, arranging fool seva, arranging so many different things, all the different items, serving devotees, serving Tulsi Maharani is also devotional service, coming to the temple, hearing the classes, coming to Namahat, this is working in devotion. When you work hard at your job and then give some portion of your money to construct temples for Krishna, you're working in devotion. When you use your brain how to serve Krishna, that's also working in devotion. Nimai Charan, are you going to work in devotion and do the arti tonight?
Yes.
And do we have any tilak for you?
I'll do it, man. I'll do it.
You have tilak for him? Okay. Because Our pujari should have tilak. All right, let's continue. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated. So that's the mode of goodness. You're not attracted, you're not repulsed. You do your duty, like we see this word repeatedly, equipoised. Whether you feel like it or don't feel like it, you do your duty. Whether it's some nice service or something you still do your prescribed duties. O mighty armed Arjuna, only the ignorant speak of devotional service, karma yoga, as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. What chapter did we study where we studied Sankhya? What chapter was that? Which one? 2. Yes, because we learned in chapter 2 the difference between what 2 things?
Body and soul.
Yes, body and soul, matter and spirit, what is temporary, what is eternal. That was Sankhya. Very good. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself to one of these paths achieves the results of both. One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. So in chapter 8, the same thing is going to be mentioned. At the end of chapter 8, Krishna will say to Arjuna that if you do devotional service, you're going to get all the results that you would have gotten by doing austerities, study of the Vedas, rituals. Just by doing devotional service, you will get the benefits of all the other items. So just by doing devotional service, all your obligations are taken care of. Just by doing devotional service. In other words, we as devotees don't have to be so much concerned with all the different Vedic rituals and procedures. It doesn't apply to us. All we need to do is more devotional activities. We should always remember that. And I was reading this week, actually, simply by doing your chanting, everything is completed. Just by doing your chanting. Because what age is this? Kali Yuga. Everything is there in the chanting. That is what Lord Chaitanya has provided for us. Because it's Kali Yuga. It's very difficult to do all the Vedic rituals. Do so many, that's all right. You simply do your japa, you simply do your chanting, everything is covered. Please, if there's one thing you learned from me after so many years, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. If you learn nothing else from Nirantara Das, I put a straw in my teeth. I bow down to your lotus feet. I flatter you 1,000 times. Just learn one thing from Nirantara Das. Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Anything you want to do, chant. That's my message. That's it. Good night. Goodbye. All right, let's continue. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. That will be again mentioned at the beginning of chapter 6. The very first verse of chapter 6 is a very similar statement. Who is the real sannyasi? Not the one who gives up all activities, the one who is devotee. At the end of chapter 6, the same thing. Who's the topmost yogi? One who is always thinking of Krishna with full faith. That's the topmost yogi. That's why, according to Lord Chaitanya, who are the topmost yogis? Gopis. Lord Chaitanya, one of his teachings, there's no better method of worshiping Krishna other than what was conceived by the gopis. And what is the gopis' worship? How can we satisfy Krishna? At their own expense. See, like a mother. All you men, your mothers, sacrifice themselves for you. And you parents, you have done the same thing for your children. So, that's why Mother's Day is an important day. How many mothers are there in the Vedic scriptures? I added one more. I added an eighth, Shastra, Mother Vedas. But according to the Vedas, there are 7 mothers. So, the mother, the nature of a mother, she'll do anything for the child, even if it risks her health. The famous story, Uttara, when Ashvatthama sent the Brahmastra, what was her prayer to Krishna? I don't mind if it kills me. Save this baby in my... Who was that baby? Right. Did Krishna protect? Yes, he neutralized the Brahmastra. He neutralized it, burned it up. And Parikshit was saying, who is this? The rest of his life, he was looking, who is that person? Therefore, Parikshit's name is Vishnu Ratha, one who was protected, because at that time it was Krishna four-handed. It wasn't Krishna flute. It was Paramatma who saved. So merely renouncing all activities, that's the impersonalist way. That's the Mayavad way. That's not our way. We don't just give up all activities. Take sannyas, I'm finished. Like there was one person I met. She became a devotee, but before she was a devotee, she was a big New Age. You know what I mean by New Age? People, you know, you've heard this expression, New Age. She was a big preacher in the New Age community. So she had backers, she had, you know, she was big time, okay? So before becoming a devotee, as in many cases, the big New Age movement, all of a sudden, where's all the money? So there was all these debts. So in the meeting, she says, I renounce all these debts. I renounced. You can't just renounce your debts. Doesn't work that way. I renounce them. Goodbye. I owe $1 million. That's all right. I renounce. Can't do like that. So merely renouncing activities doesn't get you off the hook. All right. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. So, question. What are the 3 features of the supreme? Boy, my students, they are flashing today. So, which class of transcendentalists consider Brahman to be the supreme?
Gyanis.
Yes, Gyanis. And which class of transcendentalists consider Paramatma to be supreme?
Yogis.
And which class of transcendentalists take the personality of Godhead to be supreme?
Devotees.
So which one are you?
Devotees.
We're devotees. Actually, we're devotees of devotees. And Prabhupada warned us, his disciples. He said, don't think you're devotees. He warned us. He says, you're not devotees. You're servants of the devotees. Should not think of yourselves as devotees. But you are just like one of Prabhupada's sannyasi disciples, when Prabhupada was on the planet, he wrote us Vyas Puja offering. And in his offering to Prabhupada, he wrote, I am your devotee. And Prabhupada wrote back, no, you're servant. You're not devotee of me. You're servant of the spiritual master. In other words, humility, humility.
Even in Bhagavatam, Vitrasur also prays like that, right?
Who prays?
Vitrasur,
Ah, tell us.
Dasanudas.
He says like that.
Yes.
Can you
Four prayers he said.
can you speak more on this?
He said, the one person who takes your name, I am his servant.
He said like that, one who takes your name? I like this, Vitrasur.
He's referring to Lord Shiva. Is he referring to Lord Shiva?
Vitrasur, no. Vitrasur is praying to Krishna. Vitrasur is not praying to Lord Shiva. Who is he fighting? Who?
He was the king.
No, he's
Who is Vitrasura fighting? Indra. Right? He was fighting Indra. And he offered these prayers. And basically he was saying, Indra, kill me, because he knew once I'm killed, where is he going? He's going back to, because who was he in his previous life? Chitraketu. So this whole Vitrasura thing was just to pacify Parvati, who cursed him. But he knew, because he's devotee, and that's where Lord Shiva comes in, Batuk. Originally,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
yes, you were
We're talking this morning.
one birth. Oh, you were talking this.
This morning, yeah.
Oh, good. All right. So that's nice. Dasan, he says like that. He says, one who takes your name. Oh, very nice. Who remembers you. Okay. Okay, Krishna Kumar Das Anudas. Let's continue. So now the next section. Verses 7 through 15. The art of working. Om, did you come by yourself or did you bring an entourage?
Just by myself.
Where's the rest of the gang? They don't like me anymore?
They have their own something.
Oh, man. Okay. The art of working. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. So, this is the description of the 6 Goswamis. Dhira Dhira Janapriyo Priyukaro. During the time of the 6 Goswamis, even the dacoits liked them, because the 6 Goswamis were completely free from envy. So even the nice, gentle people liked them, even the Gundas liked it. They couldn't find any fault with them. There's that story. At one time, there was a murder plot against Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Some people wanted Bhaktisiddhanta killed. So they went, in India, what do? You go to the police, bribe them. All right? So when they went to the police told the Gundas, look, sometimes we do like this, but not with sadhu. So Bhaktisiddhanta was recognized. He said, no, you don't do this with a genuine sadhu. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. He's not doing anything because what's actually going on? What's going on is simply the modes of nature. It's simply the senses and the sense objects. A person who is attached thinks, I'm doing this, this is happening. But a person in transcendental consciousness knows, no, all that's happening is the senses are interacting with the sense objects. Everything's under the jurisdiction of the modes of material nature. The same thing with Prahlad. There's the description in the 7th canto. Prahlad was in the same situation. Prahlad was always in, even at the age of 5, was always in deep Krishna consciousness, and all his bodily functions were just going on, but he was completely aloof from them. Okay. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that, here it is, that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. One who performs his duty without attachment. That doesn't mean without enthusiasm. Without attachment doesn't mean you do something haphazardly. That's not what that means. Without attachment means you're not looking to see what you get out of it. That's the meaning of without attachment. You're not worried about what's in it for you. Surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord is unaffected by sinful reaction, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. That's big. So that's what we should be, how we should be living. We should be doing things only for the purpose of purification. The non-devotees, what is their impetus? Why do they do things? Non-devotees. Yes, what are they looking for? Yes, exactly. Their impetus is sense gratification. I want money so that I can enjoy my senses. That's what motivates them. You don't pay somebody, you won't see them. Right? Nobody is working in the material world out of love. Right? Government people, same way. How they can get more and more money out of their position. You want something? You go to a lawyer. God forbid. But when you go to a lawyer, the bill is how much? $400 an hour. And they bill according to increments. Every second there, and when you get the bills, like, sheesh, it took 20 minutes to mail an envelope. $150. Right? Everybody is looking for my take. But our motivation should be, I'm working to purify myself. Everything I'm doing is for purification. That's why we follow the 4 regulative principles. We follow these 4 regulative principles so that we can chant purely. You can chant and not follow the 4 regulative principles, but that's not pure chanting. There's some benefit, but not the same amount of benefit that you would get when you follow the regulative principles and you live like a Brahmana. And Prabhupada mentioned the 2 big things: cleanliness, punctuality. When Prabhupada was instructing us about deity worship, he said 2 things: punctuality. Has to be on time. That famous story. Prabhupada he would go on his morning walk, 7 o'clock. He wanted that Govindam prayer to start, and the deity doors open. This one temple, Prabhupada was looking at his watch, 7 o'clock, the doors didn't open. He took his cane, open up. He wanted his temple, he got that when he went to Japan. Because in Japan they have subways, they run clockwork. So when Prabhupada went to Japan to work out the book deal with this company Dai Nippon, who was publishing the first Bhagavatams, and Chaitanya Charitamrita was. So when he went there in Japan, he saw how the trains were on time to the second. So that's how he wanted deity worship. And then the second thing was revolutionary clean. Everything has to be very, very clean. The altar, behind the altar, deity kitchen, because like in LA Temple, they have a separate kitchen for the deities. So he wanted everything clean, 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 clean. All right. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. This is something that will be repeated again in 9th chapter. Yad karoshi yadashnasi, yad jahosi dadasiyat, yat tapasyasya konteya, tat karushva mad arpanam. So that's the essence of bhakti yoga, doing everything for Krishna. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body. So what are those 9 gates? Ears, eyes, nose, mouth, genital, anus. 9 holes or 9 gates or 9 doors. So, when the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. And who created the modes?
God.
Who's in charge of the modes? Where do they come from?
It's energy of God, of Krishna.
Yes, it comes from Krishna. He created the modes of nature because it's part of material nature. Where does material nature come from? From Krishna. That's where it comes from. Okay. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. In other words, you can't give the excuse, oh, this is happening, it's God's fault. You might come across this. No. Whatever is happening, I have to take responsibility. Not that God is being mean or being picking me out. That's how the bad person thinks. No. Whatever is happening is my fault. I disobeyed the laws of nature, the laws of God. I'm getting the reaction. It's very simple. Not that God is singling me out and punishing me. Some people think like that. That classic example, I don't know the man's name. It was at a program at Ron Singhania's house a couple of years ago. And this man was telling me, because we were talking, and I was saying, so when are you going to start chanting and doing some bhakti? Oh, when he makes me. Referring to Krishna. In other words, it'll happen by osmosis. It'll just happen. I said, no, it doesn't work like that. You have to put some, no. When he makes me, then I will change. In other words, he was explaining to me that he does all these bad things. So I was trying, when are you going to stop? Oh, when he makes me stop. That's not an excuse. You can't go in front of the judge. So why did you kill somebody? He made me. Why did you drive 120 miles an hour going the wrong way on the 405? God made me. That you cannot give that excuse. But people think like that. Or in the Christians they say, the devil made me do it. That's the Christian way. They have this concept of good and evil. So they said, oh, the devil made me do it. No. You have what? Free will. It may be hard, but still. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. So, we learn this from Nectar of Devotion. The root cause of sinful activity is ignorance. That's the root cause. We commit sinful activities out of ignorance. And still, there's a kind of sinful activity. Somebody knows the difference between right and wrong and still does it. That's another thing.
Prabhu, in that mode of natures are also working on them too?
Yes, but if you have knowledge, then you're able to discern. This is appropriate action. This is inappropriate action. The modes of nature are interactive. You get to decide how you want to interact with the modes of nature. Like, well, maybe you guys, but the kids nowadays, they're totally into video games. So those video games are interactive. You can choose different things. Am I right, Arjun? Huh? Right, you have some experience. My grandson is like expert, right? And I've seen what they're like. So you have different choices. You can choose this way, okay, then this thing happens. And if you choose something else happens. So that's the way the human life means, a series of choices at every second. You chose to come here today. All right? You made that choice. Therefore, you're being blessed. We're reading 5th chapter. You're going to go to Vaikuntha. We read at the beginning, right? You weren't here for the beginning. Lord Shiva says anyone who reads 5th chapter is going to Vaikuntha. So the modes of nature are there, but you choose which mode to associate with. You got my point? Now, you're born with certain tendencies. That's true. Everybody is born with certain tendencies. That's also taught in Bhagavad Gita. But by acquiring knowledge, you're able to rise above it. Like, okay, people who become addicted to alcohol, okay? So they go to some 12-step thing, or they go to some rehab. So after some time, that's called, they get cleaned up. But they know at any moment they can slip down. So they have to be very careful who they associate with. That's up to them. Because say you went to the rehab, now you're all cleaned up. But if you start going to the bars, what's going to happen? Yeah, because you put yourself in that position. And that's why Lord Chaitanya stresses association. Because depending on who or what you associate with, you're going to get affected. Any of us. We're not so strong. That's why Prabhupada created his temples. Prabhupada knew, if I don't create these temples, all these hippies will again become hippies. Huh? So he created temples so that you would have an opportunity to have good association. So that's why it's important that the temple remains a clean spiritual atmosphere. If the temple also becomes a materialistic hotel, then it's going to be a big mess in the name of a temple. So the temple has to be run on strict principles, cleanliness, Brahminical, create a spiritual atmosphere so people get purified. But if the temple becomes simply business, then nobody's going to benefit. They'll again carry on their materialistic activities. Temple has to be different than, going to the mall. If there's no difference between going to the temple and going to the mall, why bother? Right? So you decide which mode of nature. That's why we study. We learn in Bhagavad Gita what the characteristics of the mode, that's the first thing. Like it says, the demon does not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. But the person in the mode of goodness knows what is right and wrong and chooses accordingly. So that choice, that's what it's all about. It's all about the choices one makes. Like, let's take Arjuna and Hiran. So they went now so many years in school. You're finishing your 4th year, right? 3rd year. Okay. So during 3 years of college, you had lots of opportunity, I'm sure, to do sinful activities, right? But you didn't do it, did you? Because you have knowledge. If you didn't have knowledge, you might have succumbed. Just like this morning, I was with Dwarkadish, his family, Rupal, and they both told me that because they were connected with me, they are in Krishna consciousness and saved them from so much, bad things. So we've been coming to Namahat year after year after year. Now, Hiran, you're totally into chanting, right? That chanting has saved you. It's it saved you. You see what your friends are doing on the weekend. You know exactly well. They brag about it, don't they? Am I right? Right. They made their choice. They decided, no, I like the modes of passion and ignorance, but not you. Your father teaches you, trains you. What does your father stress? Knowledge, right? He's big on that because he understands ignorance is the cause of sinful life. So we're reading Bhagavad Gita to protect us so that we make the right choices. Does that clear it up? Batu? You're happy with that? Okay. The ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Because the soul by nature is what? Sat, Chit, and the soul by nature is full of knowledge, knows its constitutional position, right? Knows I'm eternal, and therefore, by nature, the soul is blissful. But because I identify with the material world, what was the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita? Don't identify with the body and the material world, because you're only going to suffer. Identify as soul, or identify as servant of the servant, or identify as chanter. That's my identity. I'm going to college, I'm working a business, but my real identity, chanter. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Let us continue. Next 3 verses, transcendental vision. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed. What's a synonym for nescience? Huh? Ignorance. Who said that? Yes, science, not science. Science is truth, knowledge, fact. Means no, just the opposite. Ignorance. Then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. Nice example. Especially here, Southern California, we get so many, although we've been blessed this year, so much rain. After so many years, we finally got some rain. And I think more is coming. Is that true? I heard more is coming. Jai. So when the sun is up, everything is revealed. We turn off all the lights in here, we'll stubber out, right? But once the light is on, we see what's going on. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater or outcast. So that's because he's not seeing the outward dress. He's not seeing the clothes. He's not seeing the car. He's seeing the soul, the person. Or in the words of Lord Shiva, he told Sati, I'm not offering obeisances to the person who identifies with the body. I'm offering obeisances to Krishna in that person's body. That's why we can offer respect even to the ant. Why? Krishna is also in the ant. So Krishna is in the Brahman. He's definitely in the cow, right, Meenakshi? Krishna is there. He's in the elephant, he's in the dog, and he's in the dog eater.
Like Krishna, these days, when Yogi Adityanath Yogi, he just elected from Uttar Pradesh. And
New Chief Minister.
he's doing wonderful jobs for cows.
For cows.
He's sealed the slaughterhouses, so many. So he's doing very good.
India should lead the way. McDonald's and Carl's you should go out of business. They should outsource that to another universe.
And he himself do the cow sale.
He does. Oh.
Every morning,
Acharya, teaching by example.
He's Yogi, his last name is
Oh.
early morning Maharaj ji gets, he has 300 cows. Early morning you feed them food, the sweet.
Maybe he could teach that to Trump. What do you think? That would be good.
Go ahead,
Modi and Yogi. Jai.
do something for cows.
Jai. Next three verses. Brahman realization. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. So in chapter 14, towards the end of chapter 14, Arjuna will ask Krishna, how do I get to this Brahman platform? Brahman platform. So what's Krishna's answer?
Mamcha Vibhichareena Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sarvada Samati Tetya Brahma Bhuyana.
Explain, my dear illustrious student.
Prabhu, don't tell me to do that because I want to see them.
I want you have to finish. Come on. What is the explanation?
So the one who is engaged in devotional service, he can realize the Brahman.
Yes, but not just devotional.
He transcends, he can
Yes.
three modes of material.
What's that?
Transcends the all material.
Yes, but what kind of devotional service?
No.
Bhakti Yogena Sevate.
You missed the point. It has to be uninterrupted devotional service. That's key. It has to be uninterrupted. You've heard me say 24/7.
Nirantara.
Yes, nirantara. Exactly. It has to be always. Not just on Sunday. It has to be all day, every day. That's the key. That we're talking about how to be liberated. So that kind of devotional service. Okay? That's an important part, but thank you. You got the answer.
Even in the Bhagavatam it says, right?
So many. That's the whole message of Bhagavatam.
Samay punsa pranapranam.
You told Bhakti Ahoitaki apratiya. There it is. There's the line. Causeless, meaning no material motive, and yes, no interruption. Excellent. Very advanced class today. I am very proud. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. So, to know the science of God, Arjuna, where would I find the science of God? Bhagavad Gita, and what else? Bhagavatam. These are your two main scriptures for the science of God. Right, very good. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. So this is another thing to keep in mind. You can tell who's actually spiritually advanced because you don't see them engaged in material sense gratification. Such a person who's actually advanced, you see that their day is spent in devotional activities. They're not doing materialistic sense gratification. And the reason for that was explained in chapter 2. Parang drisva nivartate. They have a higher taste. And that higher taste is Krishna consciousness. So you can tell who's advanced because you don't see them engaging in mundane activities. They're always engaged in devotional activities. That's how you select a spiritual master. He's someone who you see always engaged in devotional activities. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. Everybody chant the Maha Mantra, please.